Blood dripped from Zorgak's fangs, bones cracked under crushing claws. But the humans wouldn't stop coming, they never stopped. That's why nobody dared to fight them anymore. Robert Scorer's artificial leg whirred as he slid onto a bar stool on Viridia, an Elysian colony world. His grey hair and scarred face stood out among the sleek, iridescent feathered Elysians. One young male, Corvus, approached with wide eyes. "You're human," Corvus said. "I'm a historian. I've always wanted to meet one of you. Is it true? What they say about the Battle of Kvasir?" Robert grunted. "What do they say?" "That 200 human soldiers fought off 10,000 Zorgak's warriors." "Humph!" Robert took a long swig of beer. "Please, I want to record the story. Nobody else witnessed it." "Kid, trust me. You can't handle the truth of what happened on Kvasir." Robert stood to leave. "Wait, I'll buy you a drink. Food too, just tell me." Robert sighed. This damn kid wasn't going to let it go, but maybe it was time people knew. He sat back down heavily. "Fine, but I'm warning you, it ain't pretty." He closed his eyes, memories rushing back. "I was just a 25-year-old lieutenant, green as grass. We got dropped on that frozen hellhole to defend a comms relay. If it went down, we'd lose the whole damn war. Billions would die. But we were only 200 poor bastards against 10,000 of the biggest, meanest lizards you've ever seen." Robert took a long pull from his beer, the glass trembling slightly in his hand as he set it back down on the bar. He stared off into the distance, his eyes haunted by the memories of Kvasir. Corvus leaned forward, his iridescent feathers shimmering in the dim light of the bar. "You must have had some seriously advanced weaponry to take on those odds," Corvus said, his voice filled with awe. "I can't even imagine what kind of tech you were packing." Robert let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. "Kid, you've been watching too many holovids. We had standard-issue rifles, a few grenades, and a couple of heavy weapons. Nothing fancy." Corvus's eyes widened in disbelief. "But how did you manage to win against 10,000 Zorgaks with just that?" "It's not about the weapons," Robert said, his voice gruff. "It's about the soldiers wielding them. Humans have a knack for adapting, improvising, and thinking on our feet. When the odds are stacked against us, that's when we shine." The memories surged back, and Robert found himself back on the frozen surface of Kvasir. The air was filled with the deafening roar of gunfire and the snarls of the Zorgak's warriors. Robert's platoon was dug in, using the jagged terrain to their advantage. They set up choke points and kill zones, funneling the enemy into a deadly crossfire. "Bravo team, focus fire on the left flank," Robert shouted over the comm, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Charlie team, keep those heavy weapons suppressed." His men responded with crisp efficiency, adjusting their tactics on the fly. Zorgak's warriors fell by the dozens, their blood staining the snow a sickly green. But for everyone that fell, 2 more seemed to take its place. The Zorgaks pressed forward relentlessly, their numbers seemingly endless. Robert watched as one of his men took a plasma bolt to the chest, his body crumpling to the ground. Another fell, then another. The platoon was taking casualties, and Robert knew they couldn't hold out much longer. "Fall back to the relay station," Robert ordered, his mind racing. "We'll use the structure for cover." As the platoon began to withdraw, Robert and a handful of his best soldiers stayed behind to cover the retreat. They moved from cover to cover, engaging the Zorgaks in a deadly game of cat and mouse. Robert's heart pounded in his chest as he tried to come up with a plan to buy his men more time. Every second counted, and he knew their lives depended on his next move. Robert and his squad pushed through the relay station's winding corridors. Plasma scorched the walls. Alarms blared. They burst into the main control room, rifles raised. Inside huddled a group of wide-eyed civilian engineers and technicians. They trembled, hands raised. "Don't shoot," a young man shouted. "We're unarmed." Robert lowered his weapon. "I'm Lieutenant Scorer. We're here to protect you. What's your name, son?" "Saul, I'm a computer specialist." Robert nodded. "All right, Saul, we need to hold this position. Any ideas?" Saul hesitated, then spoke. The relay has a powerful communication array. I might be able to broadcast a signal to disrupt Zorgak's comms and coordination, throw them into disarray. A glimmer of hope sparked in Robert's chest. This kid was onto something. Do it, we'll buy you time. Robert barked orders to his men. They took up defensive positions around the control room, barricaded the doors. Saul typed furiously at a console, brow furrowed in concentration. The Zorgak's assault came fast and hard. They knew what the humans were trying to do. Robert and his soldiers fought like demons. Grenades shook the room. Bullets ripped into scaly flesh. Zorgak's blood painted the walls, but the lizards kept coming, waves of them, screeching war cries. Robert stood his ground at the front, rifle blazing. He dropped Zorgak's left and right, but they were forcing him back step by step. His men fell around him. Screams of pain filled his ears. Just as the Zorgaks were about to overrun their position, Saul let out a triumphant shout. "It's ready, I've got it!" "Do it," Robert roared. Saul slammed his hand on the console. The array hummed to life. A powerful burst of electromagnetic interference flooded the airwaves. The effect was instantaneous. The Zorgaks warriors staggered, clutched their heads, their formations crumbled. They turned on each other in confusion, hissing and snapping. Robert saw his chance. He rallied his battered men. "Counterattack," he bellowed. "Hit them now while they're scrambled." With a fierce battle cry, Robert led the charge. They smashed into the disoriented Zorgaks like a thunderbolt. Blades flashed, rifles cracked, human and Zorgaks blood mingled on the floor. The tight corridors became a close-quarters slaughterhouse. Robert fought like a man possessed. Adrenaline surged through his veins. He could feel the tide turning. The Zorgaks were falling back, their coordination in shambles. The Zorgaks' lines crumbled as Robert and his soldiers surged forward. Confusion reigned in the alien ranks. The humans advanced, rifles spewing death, combat knives flashing. They retook corridors slick with blood. Alien bodies piled up. The stench of gore filled the air. Robert felt a surge of hope. They were winning, but it died as quickly as it came. Her shadow fell over the battlefield. The ground shook. From the chaos emerged a towering bipedal tank bristling with weapons, a decimator. Robert's blood ran cold. He knew the stories. Entire cities reduced to ash. The decimator opened fire. Searing beams of energy sliced through metal and flesh. Humans screamed as they burned. Cover melted like wax. "Fall back," Robert roared. "Regroup at the control room." They fled, the decimator's weapons hot on their heels, barricaded the doors, caught their breath. Robert turned to Saul, eyes hard. "Can you keep that disruption signal going?" Saul nodded, face pale. "I think so, but I'll need time." "You'll get it." Robert grabbed a few men. "We're going to buy you that time. Flank this bastard. Find a weak spot." They slipped out, hugging the walls. The decimator's heavy footfalls echoed through the structure. They ducked into maintenance tunnels, doubled back through corridors, played a deadly game of hide-and-seek. They drew closer, scanned for any vulnerability, an exhaust port, a sensor array, anything. Suddenly the decimator swiveled, locked onto them. They scattered as it fired, the heat of the beams searing their skin. Robert didn't run. He planted his feet, raised his rifle, charged straight at the machine, a battle cry on his lips. Bullets pinged off its armor, beams scorched the ground at his feet. The decimator focused on him, swatted at him like a fly. His bones rattled as he rolled to avoid the blows, but he kept its attention, bought time. His men saw their chance, flanked the machine, bullets and grenades found the weak spots, tore into sensors, shredded weapons. The decimator spasmed, reeled, lashed out in a frenzy. A heavy metal leg caught Robert, sent him flying. He hit the wall hard, felt bones snap. Blood filled his mouth. Through blurred vision he saw his chance. The decimator's cockpit exposed by the damage. With the last of his strength he pushed himself up, grabbed a fallen comrade's rifle, charged one last time, straight for the killing blow. Robert's grip tightened on his glass as he continued his story, his eyes distant as if reliving the harrowing battle. "I knew I had to take out that decimator, or we were all dead. So I did the only thing I could think of. I climbed the damn thing. Corvus leaned forward, his eyes wide with disbelief. You climbed it? While it was still operational? Robert nodded, a grim smile on his face. Yeah, it was like scaling a moving mountain. The heat from its weapons nearly cooked me alive, but I made it to the top, found the cockpit hatch. He took a swig of his beer, his hand shaking slightly. I pried it open with my combat knife. Inside was this Zorgax pilot, all hissing and spitting at me. We fought, hand to hand. It was brutal. Claws and teeth and fists. Robert's voice grew quieter. I won, but not before the bastard took my arm off at the elbow. The pain was unimaginable. I blacked out. When I came to, the decimator was a smoking wreck, and the Zorgax were in full retreat. Corvus shook his head in amazement. I can't believe you survived that. Many didn't, Robert said, his voice heavy with emotion. More than half my platoon died on that frozen rock. Those of us who made it out alive, we were never the same. I left the military not long after, couldn't handle the nightmares, the guilt. He raised his glass in a solemn toast. To the fallen, may their sacrifices never be forgotten. Corvus raised his own glass, his heart heavy with the weight of Robert's story. As he left the bar that night, he realized that the true strength of humanity lay not in their weapons or technology, but in their indomitable spirit and willingness to sacrifice everything for the greater good. Robert sat alone at the bar, his thoughts drifting back to the icy wastes of Kvasir and the brothers-in-arms he had lost there. The scars he carried, both physical and mental, would never truly heal. But he took solace in the knowledge that his actions, and the actions of his fallen comrades, had helped to secure a future for humanity among the stars. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.